I spent 5 years believing my career suicide was just a mistake I made when I was too young to know better. Then my brother got engaged to a woman who wins Pulitzers for digging up buried things. When Celeste asked to interview me, Ryan told me to keep my head down. I thought he was worried I would embarrass the family again. But looking back, I realized he was simply terrified that I would finally figure out who actually struck the match. The envelope was cream-colored, textured like expensive linen, and heavy enough to bruise a toe if dropped. I found it sitting in my mailbox between a utility bill and a flyer for a discount dental clinic. It had been 5 years since I received mail that looked like this, mail that whispered of galas, boardrooms, and people who decided the fate of markets over sparkling water. I ran my thumb over the return address. The Sablegate Forum. My stomach did a slow, practiced roll. In my previous life, before the scandal at Brightwell and Rusk, an invitation to a Sablegate salon was a coronation. It meant you had arrived. Now, holding it in the dim hallway of my third-floor walk-up, it felt like a summons to a trial I thought I had already finished. I opened it with a kitchen knife. The card inside was thick, the typography elegant and severe. It invited Anna Simmons to an evening for emerging leaders in analytics. Emerging, that was a polite word for it. I was 32 years old. 5 years ago, I was a prodigy. 4 years ago, I was a liability. Now, I was the quiet, industrious operations director at Marrow Line Systems, a startup small enough to fly under the radar, but profitable enough to pay my rent. I had spent half a decade rebuilding my life brick by quiet brick, ensuring that my name appeared on nothing more public than a tax return. I placed the invitation on my counter. I should throw it away. I should shred it. But vanity is a tenacious weed. Someone at Sablegate had noticed the work I was doing at Marrow Line, the way I had restructured our data compliance to be bulletproof. Someone remembered I existed. My phone buzzed against the granite counter. It was Ryan. "Pick up," the screen commanded. "Big news." I took a breath, pushed the heavy cream card into a drawer, and answered. "Hey, Ryan," I said. "Anna, tell me you are sitting down," my brother said. His voice had that familiar, infectious cadence, the tone of a man who has never walked into a room he did not believe he could own. "I am standing, actually." "Sit," he ordered playfully. I finally did it. I asked her. The breath went out of me, a mixture of relief and sudden, sharp anxiety. "You proposed? To Celeste?" "She said yes," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice, wide and bright. "I am engaged. Anna, I am actually getting married. Congratulations." "Ryan?" I said, and I meant it. He was 35, handsome in that effortless, all-American way that aged well, and he had spent the last decade dating women who looked like accessories. Celeste Ward was different. I had not met her yet, but I knew her by reputation. Everyone did. She was an investigative journalist for the Chronicle, the kind of writer who toppled state senators and exposed corporate toxic dumping schemes. She had a Pulitzer Prize on her shelf and a terrifying intellect. "When can I meet her?" I asked. "Tonight," he said. "Come over for dinner. Just the three of us. I want you to see the ring. It is ridiculous. I had to sell my soul for the clarity grade." I laughed, leaning against the counter. "I'm sure she is worth it." "She is," Ryan said, but his voice dipped. Just a fraction. He lowered his volume, as if sharing a conspiracy. "Honestly, Anna, sometimes I think she is too accomplished. It is exhausting just looking at her CV. I have to remind her that some of us are mere mortals." He laughed, but the sound was brittle. I knew that tone. Ryan loved to shine, and he loved to be the sun in the center of his own solar system. Marrying a woman who generated her own gravity was going to be an adjustment. "I will be there at 7. I said. I hung up. I opened the drawer and looked at the Sablegate invitation one more time. Emerging leader. I closed the drawer. I would not go. It was safer to stay emerging than to actually emerge. Ryan's apartment was in a pre-war building overlooking the park, the kind of place with high ceilings and a doorman who knew your schedule better than you did. When I arrived, the air smelled of roasting rosemary and expensive cologne. Ryan met me at the door, pulling me into a hug that lifted me off my feet. He smelled like cedar and gin. "She is in the kitchen," he whispered, setting me down. "Be nice. She is nervous." Celeste Ward did not look nervous. She stood by the kitchen island, expertly slicing a baguette. She was striking rather than pretty, with sharp cheekbones and eyes the color of slate. She wore a silk blouse tucked into tailored trousers, looking intimidatingly composed for a casual Tuesday dinner. "You must be Anna," she said. She did not wave the knife. She set it down with precision and wiped her hand on a towel before extending it. "I have heard so much about you." I shook her hand. Her grip was firm, dry, and cool. "Likewise, the profile you wrote last month on the housing crisis was incredible. The way you mapped the shell companies was brilliant." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "You read the footnotes?" "I live in the footnotes." I said, "It is an occupational hazard." Ryan breezed into the room, pouring wine into 3 oversized glasses. "See? I told you she was a nerd." "Celeste, Anna reads the terms of service agreements on software updates. Someone has to," Celeste said, her eyes not leaving mine. "It is where they hide the bodies." The comment hung in the air for a split second, suspended and sharp. I felt a cold prickle at the base of my neck. It was a common figure of speech, especially for a journalist. But given my history, the word bodies felt heavy. Ryan laughed, oblivious or pretending to be. "Okay, no shop talk until we have toasted the happy couple. Look at the rock. Anna, look at it." Celeste held out her left hand. The diamond was an emerald cut, flawless and severe, catching the overhead lights with a cold fire. It was beautiful and aggressive. "It is stunning," I said, "truly." We moved to the dining table. Ryan dominated the first hour of conversation, retelling the story of his proposal, an orchestrated event involving a private boat and a string quartet, with his usual charismatic flair. He was a branding consultant, and he treated his life like a campaign. He knew exactly how to light a moment to make it look golden, but as the wine level dropped, the focus shifted. "So, Anna," Celeste said, spearing a piece of roasted potato, "Ryan tells me you are at Marrowline Systems now. That is the boutique analytics firm in the financial district, right?" I nodded, taking a sip of water. "Yes, we are small, but we are growing." "I saw the quarterly figures you released for your Series B round." Celeste said, "Your retention rates are unusually high for that sector, and your compliance framework is interesting. You use a triple-blind verification process for your datasets?" I froze, my fork hovering halfway to my mouth. That was not general knowledge. That was deep in the technical architecture of our pitch deck. "That is correct," I said carefully. "It ensures objectivity." "How do you know about that?" Ryan interjected, waving a hand. "Celeste reads everything. She is a vacuum. It is terrifying. Do not encourage her, Anna, or she will start asking you for sources." "I am just curious," Celeste said, her smile polite, but her eyes scanning my face with the intensity of a sniper looking for a wind reading. "Most companies in your position prioritize speed over verification. Marrowline seems to be building a fortress. It is almost as if someone in leadership is deeply afraid of a data audit." The room went quiet. The hum of the refrigerator seemed suddenly loud. "We prioritize accuracy," I said, my voice steady. "Speed is useless if the direction is wrong." Ryan clapped his hands together, the sound jarring. "Okay, enough about data. Boring. Anna, tell Celeste about the time we went to the Cape and you drove Dad's boat into the dock. He was steering us away. He was protecting me." I forced a laugh and launched into the safe, well-worn anecdote about the boat. But I could feel Celeste watching me. She was not listening to the story. She was watching my hands, my posture, the way I refused to look at her directly. She was not just a fiancée. She was a hunter, and I was beginning to feel like prey. The next morning, the office felt different. Marrowline Systems occupied a converted loft in Soho, all exposed brick and glass walls. Usually, I loved the transparency of it. Today, I felt exposed. Matteo Grant, my co-founder and the CEO, caught me by the coffee machine. Matteo was a genius with code but a child when it came to confrontation. He looked pale. Anna, do you have a second? He asked. Sure. Everything okay? He gestured for me to follow him into the glass cube he called an office. He closed the door, which he never did. We got a ping from the PR agency this morning, Matteo said, leaning against his desk. Apparently, the nominations for the Forbes 30 Under 30 list are circulating again. I felt a flash of irritation. Matteo, you know we agreed not to pay for those vanity awards. It is not a pay-to-play situation, he said. He rubbed the back of his neck. They are doing a feature on integrity in tech. An outside journalist is putting together a package. They reached out to the board for background on the leadership team. I stiffened. Which journalist? He shrugged. I do not know. The email came from an editor, but they asked for specific files. Anna, they wanted to know about the founding timeline, the equity split, and they asked for a list of all your prior employments. My heart hammered against my ribs. My prior employment was a matter of public record. But the details of my departure from Brightwell and Rusk were sealed tight. What did you tell them? I asked. I told them to talk to you. Matteo said, you handle the external messaging, but Anna, he hesitated. They asked if there were any undisclosed conflicts regarding your time at Brightwell. I stared at him. The glass walls of the office suddenly felt very thin. There are no conflicts, I said, my voice harder than I intended. There is a settlement agreement that prevents me from discussing it. That is standard. I know, Matteo said, raising his hands. I trust you. Anna, you built this place. I'm just telling you. The questions felt specific. I went back to my desk, but I could not focus. The numbers on my screen blurred. 30 under 30, a list for the golden children. I had been on track for that list when I was 26, before the world fell out from under me, before I signed the papers that traded my reputation for silence. My cell phone buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. Anna, it is Celeste. I obtained your number from Ryan's phone. I hope that is all right. I am downstairs at the coffee shop on the corner of your block. I have 15 minutes. We need to talk. Not as family. I stared at the screen. Not as family. I could ignore it. I could say I was in a meeting. But if Celeste Ward was downstairs, she already knew I was in the building. Journalists like her did not ask questions unless they already knew the answers. I grabbed my coat. The coffee shop was noisy, filled with the clatter of porcelain and the hum of espresso grinders. Celeste was sitting at a small table in the back, an untouched Americano in front of her. She was wearing a trench coat, looking like she had just stepped out of a noir film, minus the cigarette smoke. She did not smile when I approached. She gestured to the empty chair. Sit down. Anna. I sat. I did not take off my coat. What is this about? Celeste? I have a department to run. She folded her hands on the table. They were manicured. Perfect. And terrifyingly still. I am writing the feature package for the Forbes 30 Under 30 issue. She said, the theme this year is the cost of ambition. I am profiling candidates who have built significant ventures despite complications. I am not a candidate. I said, I did not apply. You were nominated, she said, by a venture capital partner who admires your compliance models. But that is not why I am here. She reached into her bag and pulled out a manila folder. She did not open it. She just placed it between us, when a name comes up for the list. We run a background check, she said. Standard procedure. Usually, it turns up parking tickets or a college arrest for possession. And? I asked, keeping my face blank. And your name flagged on a confidential reference database used by compliance officers. She said, it is a sealed file. Anna. But the metadata is there. It links you to the Brightwell and Rusk data inflation scandal of 5 years ago. I felt the blood drain from my face. That file is sealed. It was a mutual separation. Celeste leaned forward. Her voice dropped, becoming softer but more intense. I know what the official line is. Creative differences. Personal leave. But I have a source. Anna. An anonymous tip came in through the encrypted portal at the paper 3 days ago. She tapped the folder. The tip says, you did not just leave. It says, you took the fall for a higher up. It says you signed a confession for data manipulation you did not commit to protect a senior partner. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. I cannot have this conversation. I said, I am happy for you and Ryan. Celeste, but I do not mix family and business, and I certainly do not discuss sealed legal matters with journalists, even if they are marrying my brother. Celeste did not move. She looked up at me, and for a second, I saw something other than ambition in her eyes. I saw concern, or maybe it was pity. I hated both. Anna, she said, if you were scapegoated, that is a story. That is the story. The 30 under 30 angle is fluff. But if a 27-year-old woman was forced to fall on her sword to save a boardroom full of men, that is a headline. I am not a headline. I snapped. I am a private citizen. Leave it alone. Celeste, I turned to go. One more thing, she called out. I stopped, my hand on the back of the chair. The tip, she said. It used a specific phrase. It said you were containment. Does that mean anything to you? I did not answer. I walked out of the coffee shop, stepping into the cold wind. I walked 2 blocks before I realized I was shaking. Containment. I had not heard that word in 5 years. Not since the day I sat in a windowless room with 3 lawyers and signed my life away. I did not go back to the office. I went home, pulled the blinds, and sat in the dark. Ryan came over at 6. He did not call first. He had a key, a relic from when I was first recovering from the scandal, and he claimed he was worried I might do something drastic. I had never asked for the key back. He let himself in, bringing a gust of hallway air and the scent of expensive takeout. Anna, you in here? It is dark as a tomb. I am in the living room. I said. He flipped on the lights. I blinked, shielding my eyes. He was holding 2 bags of Thai food and a bottle of Riesling. He looked handsome, cheerful, and completely unbothered. I heard you met Celeste for coffee, he said, walking to the kitchen to unpack the food. She told me she might have spooked you. I stood up, wrapping my arms around myself. Spooked me? Ryan, she is digging into the Brightwell file. She knows about the settlement. Ryan paused, holding a carton of pad thai. He turned slowly. She is doing her job. Anna, she is thorough. I told you that. She said she got a tip. I said, someone told her I took the fall. Ryan's face didn't change, but his eyes went flat. A tip? From who? She did not say, but she used the word containment. Ryan set the food down. He walked over to me, his movements fluid and calm. He put his hands on my shoulders. His hands were warm, heavy. Listen to me. Anna, Celeste is a dog with a bone. That is who she is. It is why she is successful. But she is also my fiancée. She is family now. She wants to write a story. Ryan, she wants to expose it. She won't, he said firmly. I will talk to her. I will explain that this is ancient history and that dragging it up hurts you. She loves me. She will listen. He squeezed my shoulders, a little too hard. But you have to do your part. Anna, do not engage with her on this. Do not give her oxygen. If you start acting defensive, she will think there is something to find. Just laugh it off. Tell her it was a boring corporate dispute and you have moved on. I looked at him. He was smiling. That reassuring big brother smile that had gotten me through my parents' divorce and my college breakups. But for the first time, I saw the strain around his eyes. You do not want her to find out. I said, you are worried it will make you look bad. He sighed, dropping his hands. Anna, look at the timing. I am launching the new consultancy firm next month. I am marrying a woman who is practically American royalty. We are building a life. We cannot have your old drama resurfacing and splashing mud on everything. My old drama. The drama that happened because I trusted the wrong people. I am not inviting drama. Ryan. She approached me, then shut it down. He said, his voice was hard now, commanding. Do not invite drama into my engagement year. Anna. Celeste has a habit of turning the people she loves into headlines because she thinks she is saving them. Do not let her save you. You are already saved. I saved you. Remember? I remembered. I remembered him driving me to the lawyers. I remembered him telling me what to sign. I remembered him holding my hand while I cried, telling me it was the only way to protect the family name. I remember. I whispered. Good. He kissed my forehead. Now, let's eat. I brought extra spring rolls. He left at 10. I cleaned up the takeout containers, the smell of peanut sauce lingering in the air. I felt exhausted, hollowed out. I sat down at my laptop to check my personal email. I needed to distract myself. I scrolled through the junk mail, coupons, newsletters, a notification from LinkedIn, and then I saw it. It was in my spam folder. The sender was a string of random characters, an encrypted Proton mail address. The subject line was blank. I hovered the mouse over it. My training in data security screamed at me to delete it. Do not open attachments from unknown senders, but the timestamp was from this afternoon. Right after I left the coffee shop, I opened the email. There was no text, just a single image attachment, a screenshot. I clicked it. It was a screenshot of a digital calendar invite from 5 years ago, Outlook interface. The date was the week before my resignation, the week before the scandal broke. The title of the meeting was Simmons, Containment Plan. The location was Brightwell Executive Boardroom B, and there were 3 attendees listed. The first was the CEO of Brightwell, the second was the head of legal, and the third, copied on the invite as an external consultant, was Ryan Simmons. I stared at the screen. The pixels seemed to vibrate. Ryan had told me he found out about the scandal the day I called him, sobbing, from the bathroom. He said he came to the office to pick me up. He said he was blindsided, but the calendar invite was dated 3 days before that phone call. He knew. He was in the meeting called Containment Plan. He was not just my brother. He was the architect. I closed the laptop, my hands trembling so hard I could barely feel the metal casing. The apartment was silent. But inside my head, the noise was deafening. The foundation of my reality, the belief that my brother was my protector, had just cracked. And through the fissure, I could see something dark moving underneath. I looked at the darkened screen. Do not invite drama, he had said. It was too late. The drama was already here. It had been here for 5 years, sleeping in the guest room, waiting for a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist to knock on the door and wake it up. I reached into the drawer and pulled out the Sablegate invitation. Emerging leader. I took a pen and circled the RSVP. Yes, the digital ghost of my past life lived on a hard drive I kept in a fireproof box at the bottom of my closet. For 5 years, I had treated that silver rectangle like it was radioactive. I had convinced myself that if I never plugged it in, the data inside would eventually rot, or the magnetic polarity would flip, and the evidence of my humiliation would simply cease to exist. But data does not rot. It waits. At 2 a.m, with the city of New York breathing heavily outside my window. I sat on my bedroom floor surrounded by cables. The blue light of my laptop screen was the only illumination in the room. I had the external drive mounted, and I was scrolling through a folder labeled Brightwell, Archive. I was looking for the edges of the lie. The screenshot I had received, the calendar invite for Simmons, Containment Plan, burned in my mind like an afterimage. I needed to know what else I had missed. I opened old email threads I had saved before my access was cut. I read performance reviews from months before the scandal. Exemplary, they said. High potential for executive track. I opened the folder containing the separation agreement. I had signed it in a haze of Valium and shame. With Ryan sitting next to me, his hand on my back, telling me that signing was the only way to stop the bleeding, I read the clauses now with the cold. Surgical eye of an operations director who spent her days hunting for inefficiencies in code. Clause 4.2. The employee agrees to non-disparagement of the firm and its officers. In perpetuity. Clause 7.1. The firm agrees to seal the internal investigation findings, provided the employee adheres to the exit narrative. The exit narrative. That was what they called it, not the truth, the narrative. I closed the laptop, feeling a wave of nausea. I had spent 5 years thinking I was lucky to have escaped with my license to work in the industry. Now, looking at the timestamp on the documents, I realized the timeline was impossible. The separation agreement was drafted 48 hours before I supposedly confessed to the compliance error. They had the paperwork ready before I even knew I was in trouble. I needed a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but one who understood that the law was mostly about how you arranged the facts, not the facts themselves. I met Naomi Klein at a diner in Tribeca the next day. Naomi was a compliance attorney for a massive hedge fund, the kind of woman who wore cashmere sweaters to hide the fact that she was built out of steel cables and caffeine. We had met in a kickboxing class 3 years ago, bonding over our mutual need to hit things. I slid my phone across the table, showing her the screenshot of the calendar invite. She looked at it while chewing on a pickle. She did not gasp. She did not look shocked. She just stopped chewing for 3 seconds, then swallowed. "This is bad." "Anna," she said. "How bad?" "It is premeditated," she said. She wiped her fingers on a napkin. "If your brother was in a meeting called Containment Plan days before you resigned. He was not reacting to a crisis. He was managing a controlled demolition, and you were the building." I stared at her. Hearing someone else say it made it real. It made the air leave the room. "Ryan told me he was there to plead my case," I said, my voice sounding thin. "He said he knew the board members and he was trying to save my severance." Naomi tapped the screen. "Look at the attendee list. Anna, the head of legal, the CEO, and Ryan. That is not a pleading session. That is a strategy session. They were deciding who to blame for the data inflation. They needed a scapegoat who was senior enough to be credible, but not powerful enough to fight back." She leaned in, her voice lowering. "You were perfect. Young, female, ambitious, and trusting. And your brother was the one who delivered you." I looked out the window. A taxi splashed through a puddle. "What do I do?" I asked. Naomi took a sip of her coffee. "You need to get your file." "I have my file." "I have the separation agreement." "No," she said. "You have what they gave you. You need the arbitration record. You need the internal HR investigation notes. When you signed that agreement, you waived your right to sue, but you did not waive your right to your own personnel record under state labor laws. They told me it was sealed." I said, "Sealed does not mean gone," Naomi said. "It just means they put it in a box and taped it shut. You can ask for the box. But if I ask, they will know I am looking." Naomi nodded. "Yes, they will. And that is the point. You rattle the cage." Anna. "See who jumps?" My phone buzzed while I was walking back to the office. It was Celeste. I almost let it go to voicemail, but the memory of her intense, slate-gray eyes stopped me. I answered, "Hello? Celeste. Anna," she said. Her voice was clear, devoid of background noise. She must be in a soundproof booth or a very quiet room. "I wanted to let you know I am pausing the profile." I stopped walking. "You are?" "Yes." I spoke to my editor. I told him that I have a conflict of interest regarding the source material. I cannot write an objective piece about my future sister-in-law, especially given the complexities we discussed. Relief washed over me. Cool and sweet. "Thank you, Celeste. I appreciate that." "Do not thank me yet," she said. Her tone remained professional, cutting through my relief. I am ethically bound to recuse myself from the story, but I cannot unknow what I saw in that file. If there is evidence of systemic wrongdoing at Brightwell involving public funds or market manipulation, the paper will assign another reporter. I tightened my grip on the phone. "So you are handing it off?" "I am holding it," she corrected. "For now, because I think there is a human element here that the paperwork is not showing me." There was a pause. "Anna," she said, softer this time, "why did you not tell me about the tip?" I did not know what to say. Because I do not trust you? Because you are marrying the man who might have ruined my life? Because I just want it to be over. I said, "It is never over until the truth is on the record." Celeste said, "That is the first rule of journalism, and it is the first rule of grief. Be careful." Anna. She hung up. That evening, Ryan came over again. It was becoming a pattern. For years, we would go weeks without seeing each other, communicating via memes and brief checking-in texts. Now, he was suddenly omnipresent. He brought a bottle of wine and a photo album, a physical photo album, the kind with sticky pages that smelled of chemicals and nostalgia. "I found this in Mom's attic," he said, dropping it on my coffee table. "Look at this. The summer we went to the lake house. Look at your haircut." He sat on the sofa, patting the cushion next to him. I sat, maintaining a 6-inch distance. He flipped the pages, laughing at pictures of us as teenagers. There was Ryan, 18 and golden, standing on the dock. There was me, 15 and awkward, looking up at him with adoration. "We were a good team," he said, his finger tracing the edge of a photo, us against the world. "Remember when Dad left? I told you I would take care of it. I told you I would always handle the heavy lifting." I looked at his profile. He was handsome, reassuring, the very image of the protective older brother. It was a compelling performance. "You did take care of it," I said, testing the water. "You have always taken care of everything, even at Brightwell." He did not flinch. He did not blink. He just turned the page. "That was a nightmare," he said, shaking his head. "I still get angry when I think about how they treated you. But look at you now. You are at Marrowline. You are building something real. You survived." "Did I?" I asked. "Of course you did." He turned to me, his eyes warm. "And I'm so proud of you. Anna, that is why I want you to be my best person at the wedding. Not a bridesmaid, my best person." Standing right next to me, he reached out and took my hand. "I need you there, Anna, to show everyone that the Simmons family is solid, that we are unbroken." I looked at our joined hands. His grip was firm. It felt less like affection and more like a restraint. He was cementing the alliance. If I stood next to him at the altar, if I played the role of the doting sister, I was validating his version of history. I was signing the non-disclosure agreement all over again. This time in front of 200 guests. I would be honored. "Ryan," I said. I lied. I needed him close. I needed him to think I was still the 15-year-old girl on the dock, looking up at him to save me. Because if he thought I was safe, he might get careless. The Sablegate Forum event was held in a converted bank vault in the financial district. The walls were lined with copper, and the ceiling was 3 stories high. It smelled of expensive perfume and the ozone scent of overheated servers. I wore a black dress that felt like armor. I had almost canceled 3 times. But Naomi's voice was in my head. "Rattle the cage." I walked into the room. Accepting a glass of champagne I had no intention of drinking. The crowd was a mix of tech founders, venture capitalists, and the kind of academics who consulted for the Pentagon. I recognized a few faces from my old life, men who had looked through me when I was fired. Now, they nodded. I was the operations director at Marrowline. I was legitimate again. "Anna Simmons?" The voice was sharp, unmistakable. I turned. "Doctor?" Elaine Mercer stood near a pillar. She was 60 years old, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and glasses that hung on a chain around her neck. She had been the chief data scientist at Brightwell during my first 2 years there, a mentor who had taught me everything I knew about ethical modeling before she was pushed out for being too academic. "Dr. Mercer," I said, "I did not know you were in the city. I am consulting," she said. She looked me up and down, her gaze analyzing me like a data set. "You look tired, Anna, but you look expensive. That is a dangerous combination. I'm working hard." I said, "Marrowline is demanding." "I heard," she said. She took a sip of her drink. "I also heard you are being vetted for the 30 under 30 list." I winced. "That is a rumor, and I am not interested." "You should be," she said. "Narrative control is the only power we have left." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. The ambient noise of the party seemed to fade. "I saw what happened to you at Brightwell. Anna, I was already gone, but I saw the reports, the numbers they said you manipulated, the engagement metrics." I stiffened. "I really cannot discuss that." "I know," she said, "but I built those models. I know for a fact that you did not break them. They were broken from the top down. The inputs were corrupted before they ever reached your desk. I stared at her. What are you saying? I am saying you were never the problem. Anna, you were the solution they couldn't control. You asked too many questions about the source data. You were actually trying to fix the compliance issue. That is why they had to cut you out. You were an immune response they had to suppress. My heart hammered. But I signed. I admitted. You signed what they put in front of you because you were in shock, she said. She placed a hand on my arm. Listen to me. There is a man named Victor Kress. He was the auditor on the account. Find him. Ask him about the North Pine adjustment. North Pine? I asked. The venture capital firm? Doctor. Mercer pulled back as a waiter passed by. Just ask, she whispered. And Anna, stop looking at the floor. You have nothing to be ashamed of. She turned and vanished into the crowd, leaving me standing there with my untouched champagne and a new name burning in my mind. The next morning at Marrowline, the atmosphere was tense. Matteo was pacing in his office again. We have a problem, he said as soon as I walked in. I put my bag down. What kind of problem? Server outage? Investor problem. He said, North Pine Capital, the venture group that has been circling us for the Series B round. They sent over a due diligence questionnaire this morning, and it is aggressive. Anna, they are asking for a forensic audit of our leadership team, specifically you. He turned his monitor so I could see the email. Please provide detailed documentation regarding Anna Simmons' separation from Brightwell Rusk, specifically regarding any liability for the 2021 data restatement. We require confirmation that Ms. Simmons was not a primary actor in the containment event. I felt the blood drain from my face. They used the word containment. Why are they asking this now? I whispered. I do not know, Matteo said, but they are freezing the term sheet until we answer. Anna, if this blows up, we lose the funding. The company goes under. I looked at Matteo. He was a good man. He had taken a risk on me when no one else would. I could not let my past sink his future. I will handle it. I said, how? I am going to get the official records. I said, I am going to prove that I was cleared of criminal wrongdoing. I went to my office and closed the door. My hands were shaking. North Pine Capital, the same name, Dr. Mercer had mentioned. The North Pine adjustment. They were not asking because they were worried about my integrity. They were asking because they knew something. They knew about the containment plan. I drafted the email to the Brightwell Legal Department. Naomi had given me the template. It cited Labor Code Section 1198.5, Request for Personnel and Arbitration Records. I hit send. The package arrived 3 days later via courier. It was smaller than I expected. I took it to Naomi's apartment. I could not open it alone. We sat at her kitchen table. She used a letter opener to slice the tape. She pulled out a stack of papers, maybe 50 pages. This is light, she noted. This is not everything. She started sorting them. Performance reviews, offer letter, the resignation letter I had been forced to type, and then the arbitration summary. It was heavily redacted. Entire paragraphs were blacked out with thick, heavy toner. Incident regarding redacted data discrepancy. Employee A. Simmons accepts responsibility for oversight of redacted. Naomi flipped the page. Here, she said, look at this. She pointed to the bottom of a procedural document titled Crisis Communication Strategy, Privileged. Most of the text was blacked out, but the footer remained. Recommended spokesperson, R. Simmons. External consultant, North Pine Strategic Advisory. I felt like I had been punched in the throat. Ryan. My brother was listed as the recommended spokesperson. He was the one who told the story to the board. He was the one who framed the narrative, and he was working with North Pine. He was a consultant for the very firm that was now threatening my company. Naomi was reading the timestamps on the arbitration log. Anna, look at the dates, she said. Her voice was urgent. I looked. The arbitration was opened on October 14th at 9 a.m. It was closed on October 14th at 11 a.m., 2 hours. Naomi said, Is that normal? I asked. No, she said. That is impossible. An arbitration for a data scandal of that magnitude usually takes weeks. Discovery, depositions, witness statements. This was not an arbitration. This was a rubber stamp. She looked up at me. They rushed it through. She said, "Someone with leverage wanted this closed before the regulators could look closer. They did not want an investigation. Anna, they wanted a conviction, and they used you to get it." I stood up and walked to the window. I looked out at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, Ryan was probably trying on a tuxedo for his wedding. He was probably laughing. He had sold me. He had traded my reputation for a consulting contract with North Pine. The pieces fit together with a sickening click. Ryan's sudden success 5 years ago, his new apartment, his rapid ascent in the branding world. It was all built on the corpse of my career. I felt a cold, hard rage settling in my chest. It replaced the fear. It replaced the shame. "I need to know everything," I said. "We need the unredacted files," Naomi said, "and we are not going to get them from Brightwell." "Then where?" "I do not know yet. But we have a lead. North Pine." I went home that night and did something I had not done in 5 years. I logged into my old cloud storage account, the one I had used in college, the one that was not connected to my professional identity. I was looking for anything that might help. Old contacts, old messages. I found a folder labeled Voice Memos, Auto Save. My old phone had been set to automatically back up voicemails to the cloud. I had forgotten about it. I scrolled down to the date of my resignation. October 14th. There were 5 voicemails. 3 were from my mother, asking why I was not answering. 1 was from Ryan. "Anna, call me back. I am fixing this. Trust me." And 1 was from a number I did not recognize. It was marked unknown. I clicked play. The audio was grainy, distorted by time and compression. "If you are Anna Simmons," the voice was female, low, urgent. "I do not know if you will get this. My name is Celeste Ward. I am a reporter with the Chronicle." I froze. Celeste? 5 years ago? "I am working on a story about North Pine Capital and their portfolio pressure tactics. I have a source inside Brightwell who says you are being set up to take a fall for a liquidity gap." The recording crackled. "Do not sign anything. Anna, if you sign, they win. They are using you to cover a $400 million hole. Call me." The recording ended. I sat in the silence of my apartment. Celeste knew. She had known who I was for 5 years. When Ryan introduced us, when she shook my hand in her kitchen, when she asked me about the 30 under 30 list, she knew. She had tried to warn me, and I had never listened to the message. I grabbed my phone. My thumb hovered over Celeste's contact. "Call me." The ghost of her voice said, "I did not call. Not yet." I realized then that the game was much larger than I had imagined. It wasn't just about a brother betraying a sister. It was about $400 million. It was about a cover-up that had bought my brother a career and a fiancée. Ryan had married the woman who almost exposed him. Was that love? Or was that the ultimate containment plan? I stood up. The fear was gone. I was an operations director. My job was to fix broken systems, and my family was the most broken system I had ever seen. I walked to my desk, opened a new notebook, and wrote down 3 names: Ryan Simmons, North Pine Capital, Celeste Ward. I drew a line connecting all 3. Then I picked up my pen and circled the empty space in the middle. That was where the truth was, and I was going to find it. The rain in Battery Park was a fine, miserable mist that coated everything in a sheen of gray. I sat on a bench facing the water. The Statue of Liberty, a pale green thumbprint in the distance. My phone felt heavy in my pocket, weighted down by the 5-year-old voice memo I had finally listened to. I texted Celeste 2 hours ago. I found the voicemail. "Meet me at the ferry terminal. Alone." She arrived 10 minutes early. She wore a beige trench coat and a scarf wrapped high around her neck, looking less like a bride-to-be and more like an operative meeting a source, which, I supposed, was exactly what she was. She sat down next to me, leaving a foot of wet wood between us. She did not say hello. She just looked at the water. "You kept it," she said. It was not a question. I pulled out my phone and played it. The sound was tinny against the wind. Her voice, younger, urgent, warning me not to sign. They are using you to cover a $400 million hole. I stopped the playback. You knew, I said, staring at her profile. You knew who I was the moment Ryan introduced us. You knew I was the scapegoat at Brightwell. Celeste turned to me. Her face was pale, stripped of the polished warmth she displayed at dinner parties. I did not know it was you until Ryan showed me a picture of his sister 6 months ago. She said quietly, when I left that voicemail, you were just a name on a leaked org chart. Anna Simmons, the junior executive who was about to take the fall. Why didn't you publish the story? I asked. If you knew about the $400 million, why did you let them bury me? Because Brightwell and Rusk has a legal team that makes the Department of Justice look like a debate club. Celeste said. She dug her hands into her pockets. My editor received a cease and desist order an hour after I called you. They threatened to sue the paper for libel, defamation, and corporate espionage. They claimed the documents I had were forged, without a confirmable source on the inside. Without you, I had nothing. The story died, and so did my career. I said bitterly. Celeste looked at me, her eyes sharp and devoid of pity. They did not just want you fired, Anna. They needed a firewall. Do you understand that? They needed someone clean, someone with a spotless record, to stand between the regulators and the real problem. You were not collateral damage. You were the designated structure they burned down to stop the fire from reaching the C-suite. I shivered. And it wasn't from the cold. A firewall. That was exactly what Dr. Mercer had implied. So what now? I asked. You are marrying the man who handed them the matches. Celeste looked away, her jaw tightening. I am investigating, she said. You are engaged, I countered. I can be both, she said. I love your brother. Anna, I do. He is charming, he is brilliant, and he makes me feel safe. But I have a rule. I do not marry into a lie. If Ryan was involved in what happened to you, if he profited from it, I need to know. And if he did? She did not answer immediately. She watched a ferry cut through the gray water. Then I have a decision to make, she said. And so do you. I stood up, wrapping my coat tighter. I have made my decision. Celeste, I have a life. I have Marrowline. I am finally stable. I have spent 5 years clawing my way back to respectability. If I help you dig this up, if I become a headline again, I lose everything I have built. I am not going to blow up my life just so you can win another Pulitzer. Celeste stood up too. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. You think you are stable, Anna, but you are standing on a sinkhole. If North Pine Capital is involved, if they are the ones who requested the containment, then this isn't over. They are investing in your new company. Do you think that is a coincidence? I stared at her. The wind whipped her hair across her face. They own the narrative. Anna, she said, and until you break it, they own you. 2 days later, the invitation came. It was Ryan. Of course, he called me on a Tuesday afternoon, his voice booming with forced cheer. Anna, clear your schedule for the weekend. I rented a place upstate, Lake Skaneateles. Just for the weekend. I rubbed my temples, staring at a spreadsheet on my monitor. Ryan, I can't. We are closing the quarter at Marrowline. Bring the laptop, he insisted. Look, Anna, I know things have been tense with the wedding planning, with Celeste's job. I feel like we are drifting. I want a family weekend. Just us, me, you, Celeste. We can cook, drink wine, sit by the fire, like the old days. Please, for me? I hesitated. My instinct was to run, but Naomi's voice was in my head. Keep him close. See who jumps. Just family? I asked. No business? No networking? Scout's honor, Ryan said. Just the Simmons siblings and the future Mrs. Simmons. It will be healing. Okay, I said. I will come. The house was not a cabin. It was a sprawling, modernist glass structure perched on a cliff overlooking the lake. The kind of place that cost $5,000 a night and had heated driveways. I arrived late Friday evening. The gravel crunching under my tires sounded loud in the rural silence. I grabbed my bag and walked to the massive oak front door. Before I could knock, the door swung open, but it wasn't Ryan. It was a man I did not know. He was tall, wearing a cashmere sweater that cost more than my first car, and holding a tumbler of scotch. He had silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You must be Anna," he said smoothly. "Ryan said you were coming. I am Elias Thorne." I froze on the doorstep. Thorne. The name triggered a memory from the dossiers Naomi and I had been building. Elias Thorne, senior partner at North Pine Capital. "Where is my brother?" I asked, my grip tightening on my bag. "He is in the wine cellar," Thorne said, stepping back to let me in. Come in. Come in. It is freezing out there." I walked into the foyer. The house was expansive, with floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the black water of the lake. In the living room, a fire was roaring, and there were people. It was not just family. There were at least 6 other guests milling around, all of them radiating the same polished, predatory energy as Thorne. I recognized a lobbyist from Dyko C and a woman who ran a crisis management firm in the city. Ryan emerged from the hallway, carrying 2 bottles of vintage red. He stopped when he saw me, his smile faltering for a fraction of a second before he dialed it up to full wattage. "Anna, you made it." I looked at him, then at the room full of strangers. "Just family?" I said, my voice low. Ryan laughed, coming over to wrap an arm around my shoulder. He smelled of expensive cologne and fear. I know, he whispered in my ear, "but Elias was in town, and you know how important North Pine is to my consultancy, and to Maroline. Frankly, I thought I would kill 2 birds with 1 stone. This is good for you. Anna, network, these people can help you." He was selling me again. He had lured me here under the pretense of family bonding to parade me in front of his investors. "Look, see? The sister is under control. The loose end is tied up." I pulled away from him. "I'm going to put my bag in my room," I said. Dinner was a production. A private chef had been brought in to cook venison and truffle risotto. We sat at a long walnut table, the candlelight reflecting off the glass walls. I was seated between Ryan and Elias Thorne. Celeste was across from me, looking elegant and lethal in a black silk dress. She had barely spoken to me since I arrived, but I could feel her eyes tracking every movement at the table. "So, Anna," Thorne said, slicing his meat with surgical precision, "Ryan tells me Maroline is doing fascinating work with predictive compliance. We are," I said, keeping my voice steady, "we believe that ethics can be coded." Thorne chuckled. A dry rattling sound. "Ethics, that is a noble word. In my experience, ethics are just a variable in the risk equation, usually an expensive one." He raised his glass to Ryan. "That is why your brother is such a valuable asset to us." Thorne said to the table, "Ryan has an instinct for the human element of risk. He knows how to sanitize a narrative." The table went quiet. It was a compliment, but it felt like a threat. Ryan smiled, but he looked pale in the candlelight. "You are too kind." "Elias, I just try to protect my clients." "You do more than that," Thorne said, leaning back. "I remember the Brightwell situation 5 years ago. That was a masterclass. Ryan, the way you handled the messaging on that, truly elegant. Most firms would have imploded. You managed to contain the blast radius to a single point of failure." I stopped breathing. The risotto turned to ash in my mouth. A single point of failure. Me. He was talking about destroying my life as if it were a successful marketing campaign. Celeste's glass clinked loudly as she set it down. "That is an interesting way to phrase it." "Elias," she said. Her voice was light, conversational, but I saw the tendon in her neck tighten. "Containing the blast radius. Does that imply the explosion was inevitable?" Thorne looked at Celeste, his eyes narrowing slightly. "In high finance, Ms. Ward, explosions are always inevitable. The only variable is who gets burned. And who decides that?" Celeste asked. "Who decides who the single point of failure is?" Thorne smiled, and it was the coldest thing I had ever seen. The person holding the pen. He said, Ryan cleared his throat loudly. Who wants more wine? This is a 2014. It needs to breathe. He stood up, rushing to fill glasses, his movements jerky. He was terrified. He was watching Celeste like she was a bomb he had accidentally armed. I looked at Thorne. He wasn't looking at Ryan. He was looking at me. He knew. He knew I was the scapegoat, and he knew Ryan had done it, and he was testing us. He was seeing if the containment held. I picked up my water glass. My hand was shaking, just a little. I forced myself to take a sip. I am not a point of failure. Mr. Thorne, I said. He turned to me, eyebrows raised. I am a data point, I said, and the thing about data is that it never actually disappears. It just waits to be decrypted. Thorne's smile vanished. For a second, the air between us crackled with genuine menace. Then he laughed, a short, dismissive bark. Charming, he said. Ryan, your sister is charming. I can see why you protect her. After dinner, the group fractured. The men went to the cigar lounge. The women drifted to the fire. I went to the kitchen to get water. I needed to escape the suffocating atmosphere of wealth and complicity. I found Celeste there. She was leaning against the granite island, holding a glass of wine she hadn't touched. Did you hear him? I whispered. I heard him. She said. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the doorway, making sure we were alone. He practically confessed to the cover-up over the appetizer. He thinks he is untouchable, I said. He is, Celeste said. Men like Thorne don't go to jail. Anna, they go to the Hamptons, but Ryan is not untouchable. He is terrified. She moved closer to me. I have been talking to the other guests, she said softly. The woman from the crisis firm? She worked with Ryan on the Brightwell account. She told me she was surprised to see you here. She said Ryan told everyone you were fragile and unstable after the firing. I gripped the edge of the counter. Unstable. That was the narrative. She also told me something else. Celeste continued. She said Ryan was paid a success fee by North Pine 6 months after you resigned. A bonus for strategic alignment. My stomach dropped. A success fee. He had been paid a bounty for my head. We need proof, I said. I am working on it, Celeste said, but you need to be careful. Anna, Thorne is watching you. He knows you are a loose end. If he thinks you are going to talk, he will not just ruin your reputation. He will destroy Marilyn. He will make sure you never work again. I am already ruined, I said. I just didn't know the extent of it until tonight. I couldn't sleep. The guest room was luxurious. The sheets were Egyptian cotton, but I felt like I was lying on a slab in a morgue. At 2 a.m, I got up. The house was silent, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the wind off the lake. I walked down the hallway, intending to get a glass of milk. As I passed the master suite, the room Ryan and Celeste were sharing, I heard voices. They were arguing. Not the loud, explosive arguing of a drunk couple, but the low, hissed arguing of people who know they are being overheard by the walls, addicted to moral theater. Ryan was saying. His voice was unrecognizable, harsh, cruel. You can't just enjoy the weekend. You have to dissect everyone. Thorne is a partner. Celeste. He is the reason we can afford this life. I don't want a life paid for by men like that. Celeste snapped. And I won't be a prop in your little play. Ryan. I saw how you looked at Anna tonight. You weren't protecting her. You were managing her. I am protecting her from herself. Ryan hissed. You don't know what she is like. She gets confused. She takes things too personally. She took a felony charge personally? Celeste asked. Is that what you mean? Stop it, Ryan said. Stop digging. You think you are a crusader, but you are just looking for a story. You want to win another prize. You don't care about my family. I care about the truth. Celeste said. The truth is what we make it. Ryan's voice rose, cracking with desperation. That is the world we live in. Celeste, if you can't handle that, then maybe you shouldn't be marrying me. There was a long silence. Maybe I shouldn't, Celeste whispered. I backed away from the door, my heart pounding in my ears. I retreated to my room and locked the door. I sat on the bed, hugging my knees. Ryan had admitted it. The truth is what we make it. The morning brought a gray, flat light over the lake. I woke up to my phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was Dr. Elaine Mercer. I answered, my voice thick with sleep. Hello? Anna, listen to me. Doctor, Mercer said. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. I just got off the phone with a former colleague in publishing. What is it? I asked. Sitting up, there is a book proposal circulating, she said. A memoir from the former CFO of Brightwell. He is trying to rehabilitate his image before he runs for office. And he has a chapter on the data scandal. Anna, I haven't seen the text, but the proposal outline explicitly names you as the rogue operator who deceived the board. He is doubling down on the lie. If this book comes out, it cements the narrative forever. You will be the convenient villain in a bestseller. I felt the blood rush to my head. They are not just burying me, I said. They are pouring concrete over the grave. You have to move. Anna, Doctor, Mercer said. You cannot wait anymore. If that book gets a publisher, your version of the truth becomes a conspiracy theory. You need to preempt it. I hung up. I stared at the gray water outside my window. I had come here thinking I could play the long game. I thought I could gather evidence, build a case, and strike when I was ready. But I didn't have time. The walls were closing in. I dressed quickly and went downstairs. The house was quiet. The guests were likely sleeping off the expensive wine. I walked into the kitchen. Celeste was there. She was wearing a silk robe, her hair messy, standing by the kitchen island. She wasn't making coffee. She was staring at a piece of paper. It was a printed document. It looked like an email or a memo. Her hand was covering her mouth. Celeste? I said. She jumped, spinning around. Her eyes were wide, terrified. Anna, she breathed. What is it? I asked. She hesitated, then slid the paper across the granite counter toward me. I found this in Ryan's briefcase. She said, it was mixed in with the wedding guest list. He must have printed it out to show Thorne last night. I looked at the paper. It was an internal memo from North Pine Capital, dated yesterday. The subject line was, Risk Assessment, Marrowline/Simmons. It detailed a strategy to acquire Marrowline, strip its assets, and force a leadership change to remove me. It was a kill order for my company, but that wasn't the part that made my knees buckle. In the margin of the paper, there was a handwritten note. It was scrawled in blue ink, emphatic and jagged. I knew that handwriting. I had seen it on birthday cards, on homework help, on the check that paid for my college tuition. It was Ryan's handwriting. The note read, Execute the acquisition immediately. If Anna talks, we lose everything. I stared at the words. We lose everything. Not I. We. He had aligned himself fully with them. He wasn't my brother anymore. He was a shareholder in my destruction. I looked up at Celeste. Tears were streaming down her face. He is going to destroy your company, she whispered, to keep you quiet. I picked up the paper. My hand was steady now. The shaking had stopped. No, I said, he isn't. I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. He thinks we lose everything if I talk. I said. I looked at Celeste, and for the first time, I didn't see a journalist or an enemy. I saw an ally. He is right, I said, but I wasn't talking about money. I was talking about him. I found Ryan on the deck of the lake house, staring out at the water with a mug of coffee in his hand. The morning mist was burning off, revealing the steel-gray surface of the lake, calm and indifferent. He looked like an advertisement for the perfect weekend. Cashmere sweater, relaxed posture, the benevolent patriarch of a family he had engineered. I slid the glass door open. The sound was a harsh rumble in the quiet air. Ryan turned, smiling. There you are. I was about to start the eggs. Celeste seems to be sleeping in. I didn't return the smile. I walked to the railing and placed the folded piece of paper on the wood between us. The wind caught the corner, fluttering it like a dying moth. I found this in the kitchen, I said. Ryan looked at the paper. He didn't pick it up. He didn't have to. He knew exactly what it was. The color drained from his face, not in a rush, but slowly, like a tide going out. "That was in my briefcase," he said. His voice was level, but the warmth was gone. It was on the counter. I lied. Next to the guest list. He picked up the memo. He folded it neatly, precise creases, and slid it into his pocket. Then he took a sip of his coffee. "You shouldn't be reading my private correspondence, Anna. It is rude." "Rude?" I let out a sharp, breathless laugh. "You are plotting to dismantle my company. Ryan, you are advising North Pine to force me out of the business I built, and you wrote," I pointed at his pocket, "that if I talk, we lose everything." I stopped, my voice shaking. "What is everything? Ryan, what exactly are we losing?" Ryan set his mug down on the railing. He turned to face me fully. His expression shifted. The charm evaporated, replaced by a look of weary patience, the kind a parent gives a toddler who doesn't understand why they can't touch the stove. "We lose the future, Anna." He stepped closer. I didn't back away, though every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. "You think you built Maroline?" he asked softly. "You think you clawed your way back from the abyss on your own? Who do you think made the introductions to your first angel investors? Who smoothed the waters when people asked about your time at Brightwell?" I stared at him. "You did?" "I did," he said. "I have been cleaning up your mess for 5 years. I have been managing the narrative so you could have a second chance. And now, you are threatening to blow it all up because you found some old voicemail?" He wasn't denying it. He was reframing it. He was twisting the knife until I thanked him for the surgery. "You aren't protecting me," I said. "You are protecting North Pine. You are protecting yourself. You were in the containment meeting. Ryan, I saw the calendar invite." Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Of course I was in the meeting. Someone had to be. Do you have any idea what they were going to do to you?" "They were going to press charges. Anna, criminal charges, corporate fraud. You would have gone to prison." He grabbed my shoulders. His grip was tight, desperate. "I begged them to let you resign. I traded every favor I had. I promised them that if they let you walk away quietly, I would ensure you never spoke about the data discrepancies. I saved your life." I looked into his eyes. They were blue, familiar, and terrifyingly convinced of their own righteousness. "You didn't save me," I whispered. "You sold me. You got a consulting contract with North Pine 6 months later. Was that the trade, Ryan? My reputation for your career?" He released me, stepping back with a look of disgust. "You are being paranoid. That contract was merit-based. I am good at what I do, and what I do is protect this family from its own worst instincts." He gestured to the house, to the expensive cars in the driveway, to the life he had built. "If you start digging into the past, Anna, you won't just hurt North Pine. You will hurt me. You will hurt Celeste. You will destroy the stability you finally have. And for what? To prove you were right? To prove I'm not a criminal," I said. "To the world. The truth is, whatever the loudest voice says it is," Ryan said. "And right now, I have the microphone. Do not make me use it against you." It was a threat, naked and shivering in the morning air. I walked back inside, packed my bag, and drove back to the city without saying goodbye to Celeste. I couldn't look at her, not yet. She was still in the house with him, and I didn't know if she was a hostage or an accomplice. Naomi Klein's apartment in Brooklyn smelled of old books and strong tea. I paced the length of her living room while she sat on the floor, surrounded by the fragmented dossier we had built. He admitted it. I said, "He didn't even try to deny the meeting. He claims he did it to keep me out of prison." Naomi looked up from a stack of papers. "Prison? Anna, that is a scare tactic. The data manipulation at Brightwell was a civil compliance issue, not a criminal one, unless..." "Unless what?" "Unless the money involved was federal," Naomi said. "Or unless the fraud was so massive it crossed into securities violation territory." She tapped her pen against her lip. "We need the source," she said. "We know the narrative was fixed. We know Ryan was the architect. But we still don't have the smoking gun. The actual data that proves the numbers were cooked before you ever touched them. Brightwell wiped the servers. I said, they scrubbed everything the week I left. Naomi's eyes narrowed. Brightwell scrubbed their servers, but they used a third-party vendor for data ingestion back then. Remember? You complained about them constantly. I stopped pacing. Vector Logic. Exactly. Naomi said. Vector Logic. They went under 2 years ago. But their archives would have been purchased during liquidation. I felt a spark of adrenaline. Who bought them? Naomi smiled. A sharp, dangerous expression. I have a friend in bankruptcy law. I can find out. If that original dataset exists, it will show the raw inputs. It will show the fabricated metrics were hard-coded into the stream before they reached your dashboard. Find it, I said. Monday morning at Marrowline felt like walking into a wake. The office was quiet. The team sensed the tension radiating from the C-suite. I went straight to Matteo's office. He was staring at his screen, looking haggard. North Pine pulled the term sheet. Didn't they? I asked from the doorway. Matteo looked up. He didn't lie. They put it on hold. They cited unresolved leadership liabilities. He stood up and walked around his desk. He looked at me, really looked at me, with a sadness I hadn't seen before. Anna, he said, I need to tell you something. I braced myself. Here it comes, the request for my resignation. When we started this company, Matteo said, I didn't ask you about Brightwell. I knew the rumors. Everyone knew. But I saw your code. I saw how you worked. I figured whatever happened there was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. I said, it was a lie. I know. He said. I blinked. You know? Matteo nodded. I got a call last night from a guy I know at a hedge fund. He told me that North Pine has been bad-mouthing you for years behind closed doors. They use you as a case study in executive failure during their risk seminars. He took a deep breath. I was afraid to ask you. Anna, I didn't want to pry. I thought if I ignored it, it would go away. But it is not going away. No, I said, it isn't. Matteo straightened his shoulders. So here's the deal. I told North Pine to go to hell. I stared at him. You what? I told them we are not interested in their money if it comes with conditions on our leadership. We will find other investors. It will take longer. It will be harder. We might miss payroll next month. Matteo, I said, my voice choking. You can't do that. The valuation is 0 if we have no integrity, Matteo said. He pointed a finger at me. You are not a liability. Anna, you are the best operator I have ever met. If we go down together. But we are not letting them write our story. I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes. For 5 years, I had been waiting for the other shoe to drop. For my friends to realize I was damaged goods. Thank you, I whispered. Now, Matteo said, sitting back down. Go fix this. Whatever you need to do. Clear your name. Marrowline can wait. I needed to find Tessa Hale. Tessa had been the junior analyst on my team at Brightwell. She was the one who had first noticed the anomalies in the data. The one I had told to double-check the calculations. When I was fired, Tessa had been promoted. I found her on LinkedIn. She had left the industry entirely. She was running a boutique bakery in Park Slope. I walked in on a Tuesday afternoon. The shop smelled of yeast and cinnamon. Tessa was behind the counter, frosting a cake. She looked different, softer, happier, but with a lingering wariness in her eyes. She looked up when the bell chimed. When she saw me, the piping bag dropped from her hand. Anna, she said. Hello, Tessa. She wiped her hands on her apron, leaving streaks of white frosting on the denim. I wondered if you would ever come. I need to talk to you. Tessa. She looked at the door, then at her employee in the back. Take a break. Sarah, she called out. I'm going to step out for a minute. We sat on a bench outside the shop. The street traffic was loud, providing a layer of privacy. I am not here to cause trouble for you. I said, I just need to know what happened after I left. Tessa looked at her hands. They were trembling slightly. It was awful. Anna, after you resigned, the mood in the office, it was like a funeral where everyone knew who the murderer was, but no one could say it. Did they investigate? I asked. No, she said. That was the weird part. We thought there would be an audit, but the next day, a team of consultants came in. They locked down the servers. They told us that the bad actor had been removed and that we were to proceed with the Q4 projections using the new baseline. The bad actor, me, Tessa. I said, "Who ran that meeting? Who told you I was the bad actor?" She hesitated. It was management, the CEO, and, "Your brother?" My breath hitched. Ryan spoke to the team? Tessa nodded. "He came in on Thursday, the day before your resignation was announced. He stood at the front of the room with the CEO. He didn't say much, but he was there. He looked sad. He said he was there as a representative of the family to ensure a smooth transition. Thursday. I resigned on Friday. Ryan was in the building, coordinating the message with the CEO, 24 hours before I even knew I was fired. Did he meet with anyone else? I asked. Tessa frowned, thinking. He spent a lot of time in the conference room with the crisis PR firm, and, oh, what? I saw him in the lobby with a man from North Pine. She said, "Tall guy, silver hair, Elias Thorne." I said, "Yes, that was him." They were shaking hands. It looked congratulatory. I closed my eyes. The pieces clicked into place with the finality of a prison door slamming shut. Ryan hadn't just managed the crisis. He had engineered the transition. The containment plan wasn't about containing the scandal. It was about containing me. North Pine needed a scapegoat to close the books on the bad debt. And Ryan needed a career boost. They traded me like a commodity. "Thank you." "Tessa," I said, standing up. "Anna," she said, grabbing my wrist. "There is one more thing." I looked down at her. "The meeting where they decided to blame you?" Tessa whispered. I overheard the HR director talking about it later. "They didn't choose you because you were the most liable. They chose you because you were the cleanest scapegoat." What does that mean? It means you were talented enough to be believable as the mastermind. But you didn't have any political backing. You were alone. And she paused. "And they knew your brother would deliver you." I walked away from the bakery. I felt lightheaded. They knew. They knew Ryan would sell me out. That was his value proposition. I returned to my apartment to find Celeste sitting on the steps of my building. She looked exhausted. The polished investigative journalist was gone, replaced by a woman in jeans and a sweater who looked like she hadn't slept in 3 days. "I can't do it," she said as I approached. "Can't do what?" "I can't write the story my editors want," she said. She stood up, brushing dirt off her pants. "They want the redemption arc, Anna. They want the fallen prodigy returns. They want me to write about how you overcame your mistakes to build Marrowline." She laughed bitterly. "They want me to validate the lie. They want me to say that you were guilty. But you have atoned. It is a great narrative. It sells magazines. It makes everyone feel good. And?" I asked. And I told them no. Celeste said, "I told them I wouldn't write it." She looked me in the eye. "I can't marry him." "Anna." The words hung in the air between us. "I left the lake house an hour after you did." She said, "I asked him about the memo. He told me I was being hysterical. He told me that if I loved him, I would understand that business is war." She shivered. "I don't want to be a casualty of his war." I unlocked the front door and led her inside. We sat on my couch in the fading light. "So what happens now?" I asked. Celeste pulled a notebook from her bag. "Now, I give you a choice," she said. "I can walk away. I can kill the story entirely. No Forbes list, no profile, no nothing. You go back to your quiet life. You keep your head down. Ryan wins, but you survive. And the other option? Or," she said, opening the notebook, "we tell the truth, not the redemption story, the exposé. We blow the lid off Brightwell, North Pine, and your brother. It will destroy his career." I said, "Yes," she said, "and it might destroy mine. And it will definitely make your life hell for the next 6 months. You will be sued. You will be dragged through the mud." She leaned forward. "But it will be your story, Anna. For the first time." I looked at the notebook. I thought about Matteo risking his company for me. I thought about Tessa in the bakery, carrying the weight of a secret for 5 years. I thought about the containment plan calendar invite. Write it, I said. The next day, the final piece of the puzzle arrived. It was an email from the State Labor Board. My official request for the unredacted arbitration file had finally been processed. It was a massive PDF, 300 pages of legal jargon. I sat at my desk, scrolling through it. Naomi was on speakerphone. Skip to the addendums. She said, "That is where they hide the bodies." I scrolled. Page 200, page 250. I found an attachment titled Exhibit C, Communication Protocol. It was a document signed by me. I recognized my signature. Jagged. Rushed. I remembered signing it. Ryan had told me it was a standard non-disclosure agreement to protect client privacy. I read the text. Clause 14b. The employee agrees that all public statements regarding the separation shall be coordinated through the firm's designated spokesperson. The employee waives the right to contradict, correct, or amend any statements made by said spokesperson regarding the nature of the separation. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. "Naomi," I said, "look at Clause 14b. I hear typing." Then silence. "Oh my God," Naomi whispered. "What?" "Look at the definition of terms. Anna. Who is listed as the designated spokesperson?" I scrolled down to the bottom of the page. Designated spokesperson, Ryan Simmons. Principal consultant. I dropped the mouse. He didn't just frame me. He legally bound me to his lies. I had signed a contract giving him the exclusive right to tell my story. If I spoke out, if I contradicted him, I wasn't just breaking a social contract. I was breaching a legal settlement. He could sue me for every penny I had. He could bankrupt me. That was why he was so confident. That was why he told Thorne I was contained. He held the leash, and I had handed it to him. I stared at the name on the screen. Ryan Simmons, my brother, my guardian, my jailer. I picked up the phone. "Naomi," I said, my voice dead calm. "Yeah? Does this clause hold up if the spokesperson was committing fraud when he made the statements?" There was a long pause. "If we can prove he knew the data was fake," Naomi said, "then the contract is void. It becomes evidence of conspiracy. Then we have to prove it." I said. I hung up. I looked at the window. The city looked different now. It wasn't a place to hide anymore. It was a battlefield. I picked up my phone and texted Celeste. "I have the gun. Now we need the bullets." The realization did not hit me like a physical blow. It was more like a slow, creeping frost that started at my toes and worked its way up to my throat, freezing everything in its path. I sat on the floor of my apartment. The arbitration file spread out around me like a paper fan. Clause 14b. The designated spokesperson. For 5 years, I had believed that I was the one who broke down. I believed that the pressure of the job had caused me to miss the warning signs, that I was too young, too inexperienced, too eager to please. I believed the narrative that Ryan had whispered to me in the lawyer's office. "You are in over your head. Anna, you made a mistake. Let me help you fix it." But it wasn't a mistake. It was a script. I hadn't just lost a job. I had lost my ownership of reality. They had gaslit me on an industrial scale, taking my confusion and molding it into a confession, then locking it inside a legal vault that only my brother had the key to. I looked at the signature on the page. Ryan Simmons. He hadn't just protected the family name. He had monetized my destruction. Naomi sat across from me, her face grim. She wasn't drinking tea anymore. She was drinking scotch. "Neat. We cannot burn the house down." "Anna," she said, her voice steady, "if you go to the press with this tomorrow, Ryan will sue you for breach of contract before the ink is dry. He will paint you as a bitter, unstable woman lashing out at her successful brother. North Pine will bury Marrowline in litigation. You will lose." I looked up at her. "So what do I do? Let him win?" "No," Naomi said. "We don't burn the house down. We take it apart. Brick by brick. We do a controlled disclosure." She pulled a legal pad toward her. "We need a dossier," she said. "Not a rant, a timeline. We map every email, every meeting, every discrepancy between the official record and the reality. We get Dr. Mercer's testimony. We get the data from the old vector logic archives. And then we present it to 3 people simultaneously." "Who?" I asked. "The General Counsel of Maroline. To protect your current job. Naomi listed, the editor of Forbes, to kill the redemption story, and the board of directors at Brightwell." "Brightwell?" I asked. "Why would they care?" "They wanted me gone. They wanted a scapegoat," Naomi corrected. "But boards hate liability. If we can prove that Ryan and North Pine conspired to defraud the shareholders by hiding the true extent of the loss, Brightwell becomes a victim too. They will turn on Ryan to save themselves." I nodded slowly. It was dangerous. It was a high-wire act. But it was the only way to cut the strings. Ryan called me the next morning. His voice was different, softer, stripped of the manic energy he had displayed at the lake house. "Anna," he said, "can we meet? I want to apologize." I hesitated. My instinct was to hang up, but I needed to know what his next move was. I needed to see the cards he was holding. I agreed to meet him at a small park near the East River. It was public, open, and windy enough that no one could record the conversation without a professional microphone. He was sitting on a bench, watching a barge move slowly upstream. He looked tired. The lines around his eyes were deeper than I remembered. When he saw me, he stood up, but he didn't try to hug me. "Thank you for coming," he said. I sat on the opposite end of the bench. I didn't say anything. I just waited. "I was hard on you at the lake," Ryan said. "I was stressed. Elias Thorne has been putting pressure on me, and I took it out on you. I am sorry. I watched a seagull fight with a plastic wrapper. Is that what you wanted to tell me?" "No," he said. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. "I have been thinking about what you said, about how much you lost 5 years ago, and you are right. You took a hit for the team, and I haven't done enough to help you rebuild." He held the envelope out to me. "I want to give you this," he said. "It is a trust. I set it up this morning. $250,000. I stared at the envelope. It was thick, creamy paper, the same kind of paper as the Sablegate invitation. "What is this for?" I asked. "It is a safety net," Ryan said. "Use it to pay off your loans. Use it to travel. Use it to take a sabbatical from Maroline if things get too stressful. If things get too stressful." He was betting on me failing, or rather, he was ensuring that if North Pine forced me out, I would go quietly because I had a cushion. "It is a gift, Anna," he said, his eyes pleading. "A fresh start. No strings attached. There are always strings." "Ryan," I said. I didn't take the envelope. "Is this the success fee?" I asked. "Is this my cut of the money North Pine paid you to deliver my resignation?" Ryan flinched. His jaw tightened. "It is my money. Anna, I am trying to be a good brother. Why do you have to make everything into a conspiracy?" "Because I saw the arbitration file." "Ryan." He went still. The wind whipped his hair across his forehead, but he didn't move to brush it away. "I saw Clause 14b. I said, I know you are the designated spokesperson. I know you legally own my voice." Ryan looked down at his hands. He laughed. A short, dry sound. That was standard language. "Anna, the lawyers insisted on it. You are the lawyer, Ryan, or you pretended to be one." He turned to me, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. "Take the money. Anna, please, just take it and let it go. You don't understand what these people are capable of. Elias Thorne doesn't lose. If you fight him, he will grind you down until you are dust. I am trying to give you an exit ramp." I stood up. "I don't want an exit ramp," I said. "I want my name back." I walked away. I didn't look back. But I could feel his eyes on me, burning like a laser sight. He hadn't denied anything. He had just confirmed the price of my silence. $250,000. That was what my integrity was worth to him. I went straight to Celeste's apartment. She had given me a key the day after the lake house. a gesture of solidarity that felt heavier than a wedding ring. She was sitting at her dining table, surrounded by stacks of paper. She looked up when I came in, her eyes wide. "You need to see this," she said. "What did you find?" I sat down next to her. She pushed a document toward me. It was a slide deck from a North Pine investor conference, dated 4 years ago. The title was Operational Efficiency and Crisis Management. "Look at slide 12. Celeste said. I looked. It was a case study. The company names were redacted, but the details were unmistakable. Case study B. Mid-cap analytics firm. Liquidity crisis triggered by reporting errors. Strategic solution. Isolate liability to single executive unit. Result: 20% reduction in payroll costs post-restructuring. I felt a wave of nausea. They used me as an excuse to fire people. I whispered, "Exactly." Celeste said. She pointed to a graph. "Look at the timeline. After you were fired, Brightwell laid off 15% of their staff. They claimed it was part of the compliance restructuring mandated by the scandal. They got rid of the expensive senior analysts, the ones with pensions, and replaced them with algorithms and junior staff." She looked at me, her face pale. "Your scandal wasn't an accident, Anna. It was a demolition permit. They needed a reason to gut the department without spooking the shareholders, so they created a compliance crisis, pinned it on you, and then used the cleanup to slash costs. And Ryan helped them." I said. Celeste nodded. "That is why North Pine hired him. He proved he could spin a disaster into a profit margin." I looked at the slide again. Isolate liability to single executive unit. I wasn't a person to them. I was a unit, a component that could be discarded to improve the machine's efficiency. This proves the motive. Celeste said, "It proves that North Pine had a financial interest in the scandal. If we can link this to the fabricated data, we have them on securities fraud. We need the data." I said, "Naomi is working on it." Celeste said, "She is meeting with the bankruptcy trustee for Vector Logic tomorrow." My phone buzzed. It was Matteo. "Come to the office. Now." The conference room at Marrowline was glass-walled, exposed to the entire floor. Matteo was sitting at the head of the table. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. There were 2 other men in the room. I didn't recognize them, but I recognized the suits. Expensive, severe, lawyers. "Sit down." "Anna," Matteo said. I sat. The 2 lawyers watched me with the dispassionate interest of undertakers measuring a coffin. "We received a new term sheet from North Pine an hour ago." Matteo said. I looked at him. "I thought you told them to go to hell." I did. Matteo said. "But they came back, with double the valuation." He slid a document across the table. $40 million. "Anna, they are offering to lead the Series B at a $40 million valuation. That is enough to secure our runway for 3 years. It is enough to make everyone in this room rich." I looked at the number. It was staggering. It was everything we had worked for. "What is the catch?" I asked. Matteo didn't answer. He looked at the lawyers. One of the suits cleared his throat. "North Pine is excited about the technology, Ms. Simmons. However, they have concerns regarding the optical stability of the leadership team. Given the historical context of your career, they feel it would be prudent for the company's public face to be unblemished." He slid another document toward me. "This is a transition agreement," he said. "It moves you from director of operations to a strategic advisory role. You would retain your equity, you would receive a full salary, but you would step down from the board and remove your name from the executive masthead. You would be silent." I looked at Matteo. He was staring at the table, his fists clenched. "And if I don't sign?" I asked. The lawyer smiled thinly. "Then North Pine withdraws the offer, and they will likely release a statement explaining that their due diligence uncovered material risks in Marrowline's governance, which, as you know, would likely toxicify the company for other investors. It was blackmail. Elegant, corporate blackmail. They were buying my silence again. Just like Ryan had tried to do in the park. But this time, the price was my company. The price was Matteo's future. The price was the livelihood of every engineer and designer sitting outside those glass walls. I looked at the transition agreement. It was a gilded cage. I looked at Matteo. "Do you want me to sign this?" I asked. Matteo looked up. His eyes were red. "I want us to survive." "Anna, but I told you. We go down together. It is your call." I took a deep breath. I thought about the slide in Celeste's apartment. Isolate liability. If I signed this, I was letting them do it again. I was letting them erase me. I pushed the paper back toward the lawyer. "No," I said. The lawyer blinked. "Excuse me? I am not signing." I said, "And I am not stepping down." "Ms. Simmons," the lawyer said, his voice hardening, "you are jeopardizing the entire venture." "No," I said, standing up. "I am protecting it, because if North Pine is this desperate to silence me, it means they are afraid of what I know." I turned to Matteo. "I want to request an independent internal audit." I said. Matteo looked confused. "An audit? Of the finances?" "No," I said. "Of me?" I pointed to the whiteboard. "Hire a forensic investigator. A third party. Give them full access to my history, my emails, my time at Brightwell. Let them dig through everything. If they find that I am a liability, I will resign and forfeit my equity. But if they find that I was framed, then Marrowline stands by me." The lawyer stood up. "That is preposterous. A public investigation would destroy confidence. It is the only way to build it." I said, "We stop hiding. We invite the scrutiny." I looked at Matteo. "Do it. Matteo, call their bluff." Matteo looked at me, then at the lawyer. A slow smile spread across his face. "You heard her," he said to the suits. "We are initiating an audit. Tell North Pine they can keep their money. We are going to find investors who aren't afraid of the dark." The lawyers gathered their papers and left, their briefcases snapping shut like bear traps. Matteo exhaled, slumping in his chair. "You realize we just jumped off a cliff," he said. "I know," I said, "but at least we are flying." "Doctor." Mercer met me in the back of a library in Midtown. It was quiet, smelling of dust and preservation. I told her about the audit. I told her about North Pine's offer. "You are brave." "Anna," she said, "or foolish. Probably both." I admitted, "But I need you." "Elaine, if the investigators come to you, will you tell them the truth?" "Doctor." Mercer adjusted her glasses. She looked at the rows of books, thousands of stories preserved in ink. "I spent my career building models based on truth." She said, watching them twist the data at Brightwell. "It broke something in me. I retired because I couldn't stand the smell of the lies anymore." She looked at me. "Yes," she said, "I will testify, but only to the investigators. I will not go on television. I will not do a circus. That is all I need." I said, "Just the truth on the record. One thing. Anna." She said, "Be prepared for what they will say about you. When a woman speaks out against a system, they don't attack her argument, they attack her sanity. They will say you are emotional. They will say you are vindictive. They will say you are crazy." "I know." I said. Ryan already started. "Then put on your armor." "Doctor," Mercer said, "because the arrows are coming." The engagement party was held at a gallery in Chelsea. It was a casual affair that cost more than my annual salary. The room was filled with art that looked like violence. Splatters of red paint, twisted metal sculptures. Ryan was holding court near the bar. He looked perfect. Tuxedo jacket, no tie, a glass of scotch in hand. He was laughing with a group of men who looked like they owned small countries. I walked in with Celeste. We had agreed to arrive together. It was a statement. When Ryan saw us, his smile faltered. He excused himself and walked over, his eyes darting between us. "You came," he said to me. "I wasn't sure you would. I am still your sister." "Ryan," I said. He looked at Celeste. "You look beautiful." "Darling." Celeste didn't smile. She wore a dress the color of ice. "We need to talk." "Ryan," she said. "Not here," he hissed, glancing around. "Yes, here," Celeste said. She kept her voice low, but it carried a weight that cut through the ambient noise of the party. "I am postponing the wedding planning." "Ryan." Ryan froze. He looked like he had been slapped. What? Why? Because I don't know who you are, Celeste said. I know who you pretend to be. I know the brand. But I don't know the man. And until the truth exists in the room, until you admit what you did to your sister, I cannot marry you. Ryan's face turned a mottled red. You are being ridiculous, he whispered. You are letting her poison you. This is exactly what I warned you about. She is unstable. She is jealous. I am standing right here. Ryan, I said. He turned to me, his eyes full of venom. You are ruining this. He said, you are ruining everything. I gave you money. I gave you protection. I gave you a life. And this is how you repay me? By poisoning my fiancé against me? You didn't give me a life. Ryan. I said, you stole one. I turned to walk away. I couldn't stand the sight of him. Wait, Ryan called out. I didn't stop. I walked through the crowd, past the expensive art and the expensive people. I walked out onto the balcony. The city air was cold. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. My phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. It was a message from an unknown number. If you go public, you will be sued into dust. We will garnish your wages for the rest of your life. We will make you unhireable, but if you stay quiet, they will make you a hero. I stared at the screen. A second message came through. An attachment. It was a PDF, a draft layout for a Forbes article. The headline read, The Quiet Resilience of Anna Simmons. I zoomed in on the text. Simmons, who navigated a complex corporate restructuring early in her career, has emerged as a stoic leader in the analytics space. Her ability to prioritize organizational stability over personal ego has made her a model for the new generation of executive leadership. It was a puff piece. It praised me for being a doormat. It reframed my silence as stoicism and my scapegoating as organizational stability. It was a bribe, not in money, but in reputation. They were offering to restore my good name, but only if I agreed to the version of the story where I was a willing martyr. I looked at the blurb. Prioritize organizational stability over personal ego. That was the line. That was the lie. They wanted me to agree that the company mattered more than the truth. They wanted me to sign off on my own erasure. I looked back through the glass doors. Ryan was arguing with Celeste. He looked desperate. He was losing control, and he knew it. I looked at the message again. Sued into dust. I typed a reply. I would rather be dust than a lie. I hit send. Then I texted Naomi. Release the dossier. The next morning. The war began. Naomi sent the packet at 9 sharp. It went to the General Counsel of Maroline. It went to the Board of Brightwell. And it went to the Editor-in-Chief of Forbes, with a cover letter signed by Celeste Ward, recusing herself and providing the context for the conflict. I sat in my office at Maroline, waiting for the explosion. It didn't take long. At 10 a.m., North Pine issued a press release. They were withdrawing their offer to Maroline due to discovery of undisclosed ethical breaches by senior leadership. They were trying to kill the company to punish me. Matteo walked into my office. He had seen the release. They are playing dirty, he said. I know. I said, I am sorry. Matteo, don't be, he said. He sat on the edge of my desk. We just got a call from a competitor of North Pine. They saw the release. They want to know why North Pine is so afraid of you. I looked up. They do? Controversy creates interest. Matteo grinned. You aren't just a compliance officer anymore. Anna, you are a whistleblower. And in this market, that is a brand. My phone rang. It was Dr. Mercer. It has started, she said. I just got a call from the Brightwell board. They are convening an emergency session. They want to interview me. Tell them everything. I said, I will. She said, and Anna? Ryan is calling everyone. He is telling them you are having a mental breakdown. He is telling them you are off your meds. Let him talk. I said, the more he talks, the more he contradicts the record. I hung up. I looked at the 30 under 30 draft they had sent me. The hero narrative. I selected the file and hit delete. I didn't want to be a hero. Heroes were people who sacrificed themselves for the greater good. I wasn't sacrificing myself anymore. I was surviving. And for the first time in 5 years, the ground beneath my feet felt solid. That evening, I went home to find a courier envelope taped to my door. It wasn't from Ryan. It wasn't from North Pine. It was from the independent investigator Mateo had hired. Preliminary findings. I opened it in the hallway. Review of Brightwell Data Archive. Recovered from Vector Logic. Finding 1. Data inputs for Q3 2021 were manually altered at the source level. Finding 2. Alterations were authorized by user ID. R_Simmons_EX. T. I froze. R_Simmons_EX. T. Ryan hadn't just managed the containment. He hadn't just been the spokesperson. He had a user ID. He was the one who altered the data. The realization washed over me. He wasn't protecting me from a mistake I made. He was protecting me from a crime he committed. He had logged in, changed the numbers to pump the valuation for the North Pine deal, and when the audit flagged it, he pinned it on me. He was the architect. He was the thief. And he was the brother who held my hand while I cried, telling me it would all be okay. I dropped the paper. It wasn't just betrayal. It was theft. He had stolen my life to pay for his. I picked up my phone. I dialed Celeste. She answered on the first ring. I have the smoking gun. I said, "What is it?" Ryan changed the data. I said, "I have the logs." He didn't just cover it up. Celeste, he did it. There was a silence on the other end. A long, heavy silence. Then Celeste spoke, her voice like broken glass. "Meet me at the Sablegate Forum," she said. "The award ceremony is tomorrow. Ryan is receiving the Industry Visionary Award." "I know." I said, "He thinks he is going to give a speech." Celeste said, "He isn't?" "No." Celeste said, "We are." The tape recorder sat on the glass table between us like a loaded weapon. It was a small, silver brick, digital and unblinking. We were in the conference room at Marrowline, the glass walls obscured by the night reflection of the city lights. "I am ready," I said. Celeste nodded. She didn't look like a journalist tonight. She looked like a woman who was about to set fire to her own wedding dress. She adjusted the microphone, her fingers trembling slightly. "Ground rules," Celeste said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "We stick to the timeline. We stick to the documents. No speculation, no emotional color. If you feel like you are guessing, we stop." I agreed to those terms. I said, She pressed the red button. The recording light blinked on. "State your name for the record." "Anna Simmons." "And your current title?" "Director of Operations, Marrowline Systems." "And your previous employment?" "Junior Analyst, Brightwell and Rusk. Separated October 14th, 2021. Celeste looked at me. Her eyes were slate gray, hard and focused. "Why are you coming forward now?" "Ms. Simmons?" "Because the narrative of my separation was falsified." I said, "I was not separated for negligence. I was separated to conceal a securities violation committed by a third party." "Who was that third party?" I took a breath. The name felt like a stone in my throat. "Ryan Simmons," I said, "my brother, and a consultant for North Pine Capital. The dossier we assembled was not a story, it was an autopsy." Naomi and I spent 48 hours in her apartment, fueled by stale coffee and adrenaline. We didn't sleep. We built a timeline that was bulletproof. We had the logs from Vector Logic, recovered from the bankruptcy sale, showing the user ID R_Simmons_EXT, accessing the raw data stream 3 days before the quarterly report was finalized. We had the timestamp of the modification, a manual override that inflated the engagement metrics by 40%. We had the email from HR at Brightwell, drafted but never sent to me, acknowledging that the anomaly had been flagged by an internal audit before I even saw the dashboard. We had the containment plan calendar invite. We had the arbitration agreement with Clause 14B, appointing Ryan as the owner of my voice, and we had the memo from North Pine Capital, with Ryan's handwriting in the margin. If Anna talks, we lose everything. When we were finished, the file was 200 pages thick. It was heavy. It felt like holding a physical manifestation of 5 years of pain. Naomi bound it in a simple black cover. "This is it," she said. "Who gets it first?" I asked. "The board of directors at Marrowline," she said. "We have to inoculate your company. If they see this before North Pine leaks the smear campaign, you might survive." "And then?" "Then the independent investigator," Naomi said. "And finally, Celeste takes it to her editor." I looked at the black binder. "Do it," I said. The retaliation was immediate. 12 hours after we delivered the dossier to Marrowline's general counsel, North Pine withdrew the term sheet. They didn't just pull the offer, they scorched the earth. A blind item appeared on a popular industry gossip blog that afternoon. Which rising female exec in the analytics space is about to be ousted for a second time? Sources say her mental instability and paranoia have spooked investors, leading to a collapsed $40 million deal. Looks like the brother can't save her this time. My phone started blowing up. Vendors were calling to ask if our contracts were safe. Employees were whispering in the break room. The phrase mental instability was doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was delegitimizing my competence. Matteo stormed into my office, waving his tablet. "Have you seen this?" he demanded. "I saw it," I said, not looking up from my monitor. "They are saying you are crazy. Anna. They are saying you torpedoed the deal because you are off your meds. It is the playbook." "Matteo," I said. I looked at him. "They did the same thing 5 years ago. They don't attack the facts. They attack the witness." Matteo slammed the tablet onto my desk. "Well, it is working. We have lost 2 clients this morning. They are scared. They don't want to be associated with a volatile leadership team." He ran a hand through his hair. "Anna, the board is meeting tonight. They are going to discuss your position." I stood up. "Good." I said, "Good?" Matteo stared at me. "I want them to meet. I want them to read the dossier Naomi sent them. If they fire me after reading that, then this company deserves to fail." I walked past him, grabbing my coat. "Where are you going?" he asked. "I'm going to see the source." I said. Ryan was waiting for me in the lobby of my apartment building. He couldn't get up. I had revoked his key access that morning, so he was pacing the marble floor, looking like a caged tiger in a $3,000 suit. When I walked in, he stopped. He looked wrecked. His eyes were bloodshot, his tie was loose, and he had the desperate energy of a man who was watching his own funeral on a delay loop. "You sent the file," he said. His voice was a rasp. I walked past him to the elevator bank. I did. He grabbed my arm. It wasn't a gentle grip. It was painful. "Do you have any idea what you have done?" he hissed. "Elias Thorne is going to destroy you. He is going to sue you for defamation, for breach of contract, for corporate espionage. You will spend the next 10 years in court. You will be bankrupt before you are 35. I pulled my arm free. "I am already bankrupt. Ryan, you spent my reputation 5 years ago." Ryan stepped back, running a hand over his face. He let out a ragged laugh. "You think you are so righteous," he said. "You think you are the victim, but you don't get it. Anna, you never got it." "Got what?" "I didn't sacrifice you because I hated you," he said. He looked at me, and his eyes were filled with a twisted, terrifying sincerity. He had convinced himself that destroying my life was actually a testament to my strength. "You didn't do it because I was strong." "Ryan," I said quietly, "you did it because you are weak." Ryan flinched. "And the worst part?" I continued. "You are still weak. You are terrified. That is why you are here. You aren't worried about me being sued. You are worried about the witness statement from Vector Logic." Ryan went pale. "How do you know about Vector Logic?" he whispered. "Because I know you." "Ryan, you never do the work yourself unless you have to. And that day, you had to. You used your own login." I hit the elevator button. The door slid open. "Goodbye." Ryan. He didn't move. He stood in the lobby. a small, frightened man in an expensive suit, watching the doors close on the sister he had sold. Celeste met her editor at a diner in Hell's Kitchen. She told me about it later. The editor, a man named Marcus, who had been grooming Celeste for a senior desk position, threw the draft on the table. "This is unpublishable," he said. "It is the truth," Celeste said. "It is a liability." Marcus corrected. "We are not running an exposé on North Pine Capital based on the word of a disgruntled former employee who happens to be your future sister-in-law. It looks like a vendetta. It is documented," Celeste said. "We have the logs. We have the arbitration file." Marcus shook his head. "We have a contract with the sponsors of the 30 under 30 list. North Pine is a sponsor. Celeste, if we run this, they pull their ad buy. They pull their partnership." He leaned in. "The board wants the redemption story. They want the Anna Simmons is a survivor angle. It is inspiring. It is clean. It fits the brand. If you give me that story, you get the cover, you get the promotion. And if I don't?" Celeste asked. Marcus sighed. "Then you are breach. We kill the story. And frankly, Celeste, if you kill this story, I don't know if I can protect you from the fallout. You will be labeled difficult. You know what that does to a female journalist." Celeste looked at the draft, the lie that would make everyone happy. She picked up her coffee. "I am not writing the redemption arc." "Marcus, then you are fired," he said. "No." Celeste said, "I am resigning, and I'm taking the story with me." She stood up and walked out. She walked away from the Pulitzer track. She walked away from the safety of the institution. She chose the truth, even though it cost her the career she had spent 10 years building. She called me from the street. I did it. She said, "Are you okay?" I asked. "I don't know," she said. "I feel light, terrified, but light. Anna, we have to finish this. We have to go public before they can bury us." "We will." I said, "Tomorrow." The independent investigator was a former federal prosecutor named Sarah Jenkins. She was 60, sharp, and had zero patience for corporate posturing. She requested a meeting with Ryan at his consultancy office. Ryan went in confident. He thought he could charm her. He thought he could spin the narrative like he always did. He didn't know that Naomi had already sent Jenkins the full dossier. 10 minutes into the meeting, Jenkins placed a piece of paper on the desk. It was a sworn affidavit from the former IT administrator at Vector Logic. We had found him living in New Jersey. He remembered the data alteration because it was the only time an external consultant had ever requested direct write access to the production database. He identified Ryan from a photograph. Ryan walked out of that meeting looking like he had seen a ghost. He called Elias Thorne. "We have a problem." He said, "Thorne didn't offer help. He didn't offer a legal team. Fix it," Thorne said, "or you are on your own." The Sablegate Forum was the center of the industry's social calendar. It was a gala held in a converted armory, a cavernous space filled with round tables, crystal centerpieces, and the hum of self-congratulation. I received an invitation 3 hours before the event. The Committee for Industry Excellence wishes to present Anna Simmons with the Impact Recognition Award. It was a trap. I knew it. Celeste knew it. They were trying to get me on stage. They wanted to hand me a glass trophy, take a picture of me smiling, and then use that image to prove that everything was fine. "See? She accepted the award. She is part of the club. She is happy." If I refused, I looked bitter. If I accepted, I was complicit. I called Celeste. "I am going." I said, "Anna, no." She said, "It is a setup. They will control the mic. They will control the room. I know." I said, "But it is the only time they will all be in the same room. Ryan, Thorne, the Brightwell board, the press." I paused. "I am not going to accept the award. Celeste, I am going to testify." The room was vast and dark, lit only by the spotlight sweeping across the stage. I sat at table 42, in the back, next to Naomi. Celeste was at the press table near the front, her laptop open, ready to live blog the event on her independent Substack. Ryan was at table 1, He was sitting next to Elias Thorne. He looked pale, sweating under the stage lights. He kept checking his phone. The host, a slick tech journalist, took the podium. "Tonight, we celebrate resilience," he said. "We celebrate the leaders who have faced adversity and come back stronger." He smiled. "Please welcome to the stage the Director of Operations at Maroline Systems, Anna Simmons." The applause was polite, rippling through the dark room. I stood up. My legs felt like lead. I walked down the aisle. I could feel the eyes on me, the whispers. "That is her, the unstable one, the one who broke the deal." I walked up the stairs. The lights blinded me. The host held out the trophy. It was heavy, a jagged piece of crystal. "Congratulations, Anna," he said, leaning into the microphone. "Do you have a few words?" He expected me to say thank you. He expected me to say that I was honored, that I had learned so much from my challenges. I took the trophy. I placed it on the podium. I adjusted the microphone. I looked out into the darkness. I could just make out Ryan's face in the front row. He was staring at me, his eyes wide with panic. He was mouthing one word: "Don't." I took a piece of paper from my pocket. It wasn't a speech. It was the chronology. "I am not here to accept this award," I said. My voice echoed in the cavernous hall. The sound system was perfect. It caught every tremor, every breath, because this award is based on a lie. The room went silent. The clinking of silverware stopped. "I am not a symbol of resilience," I said. "I am a symbol of a cover-up." I looked down at the paper. On October 14th, 2021, the quarterly earnings report for Brightwell and Rusk was finalized. That report contained $40 million in fabricated engagement assets. I heard a murmur ripple through the crowd. Someone at the front table stood up. It was Elias Thorne. He was signaling to the sound engineer. "Those assets were not fabricated by me," I said, speaking faster. "They were hard-coded into the database 3 days prior. The audit logs from Vector Logic confirmed that the alteration was performed by an external consultant." The microphone gave a high-pitched whine. They were trying to cut the feed. I leaned closer to the mic, shouting over the feedback. That consultant was Ryan Simmons. The room erupted. People were standing up. Phones were flashing. Ryan stood up, knocking his chair over. He was shouting something, pointing at the stage, but his voice was lost in the chaos. I continued, reading from the paper. "I possess the unredacted arbitration files. I possess the internal memos from North Pine Capital authorizing the containment strategy. I possess the proof that my brother was paid a consulting fee to negotiate my silence." The sound cut out completely. The microphone went dead. But the room was small enough, and the acoustics of the armory were good enough. I didn't need the mic. I stepped to the edge of the stage. "I am not unstable," I shouted into the dark. "I am the evidence." Security guards were rushing down the aisles. 2 of them were heading for the stage. I looked at Celeste. She was typing furiously. She was getting it all down. It was going out to the world in real time. I looked at Ryan. He wasn't shouting anymore. He was frozen. He looked at Thorne, but Thorne had turned his back on him. Thorne was walking away, distancing himself from the blast radius. Ryan was alone, and then I saw it. A man in a cheap gray suit walked up to table 42. He didn't look at the stage. He looked at Naomi. He handed her a thick envelope. Naomi took it. She looked at the cover sheet. She looked up at me, her face draining of color. She held the envelope up so I could see it. It was a red legal notice, a temporary restraining order, and a defamation suit. But it wasn't just for me. Naomi pointed to the text. It named Maroline Systems, Anna Simmons, and Celeste Ward. They weren't just suing me. They were suing everyone I touched. They were nuclear. The security guards reached the stairs. One of them grabbed my arm. "Ms. Simmons, you need to come with us." I looked at the crowd. The celebration had turned into a riot. The mask had slipped. The polite society of the Sablegate Forum was gone, replaced by the raw, ugly machinery of power protecting itself. I looked at Ryan one last time. He was watching the guards take me. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't crying. He looked dead inside. I let them lead me away. I didn't fight. I didn't scream. I had said what I needed to say. The truth was in the room now. It was breathing. It was ugly. And it was dangerous. And it was going to cost me everything. But as they marched me through the backstage corridor, past the confused waiters and the stacked chairs, I felt something I hadn't felt in 5 years. I felt clean. The war wasn't over. In fact, looking at the legal notice in Naomi's hands, I knew the war had just begun. But for the first time, I wasn't fighting it alone. Thank you for listening to part 6 of My Brother Said His Pulitzer Fiancée Was Too Accomplished. This story is hiato from over, and the consequences of Anna's truth are just beginning to unfold. I would love to know where you are listening from today. Are you tuning in from New York, London, Tokyo, or somewhere else? Please leave a comment below with your city and country. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the Revenge Stories channel so you don't miss the next chapter of Anna's battle against her family and the corporate machine. Share your thoughts in English in the comments. Do you think Anna made the right choice, or did she just destroy her own future? Until next time.